depends on what the community wants.
There she is for you.
Ilhan Omar is garbage.
You say Minnesota, I say Somalia.
Daman Shabka, Somaliye Unul.
He said.
This backs up the entire second strike.
We didn't pick up the guys who got injured while they were bringing fentanyl.
Let's go after the drug lords where they live.
We love old Biden. Either Somali or the Navi.
No one should be detained for immigration enforcement.
No one's eating that plasma TV. How you doing, guys? I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It's December 8th, 2025. We are a minute or two late. Connor had a little snafu. Pressed the wrong button, loaded the wrong video right before the Christmas bonus. And it's like, I'm gonna have to... All right, you made up for it with the sound effect. I cannot believe it's almost Christmas right now. Like this year, I know I say it all the time, but it just seems to me, I don't know if it's from the endless scrolling or middle age or what, but just the years are going by too fast. I could see how one day you're 85 years old, you're sitting on a bench. Where are my teeth? Who took my shoe? Like, anyway, we've got a program for you involving politics, culture, borders, immigration, crazy people, I think one or two sane people. We got a little bit of everything on today's show. It's a good Monday for you. Let's just dive right in. Kevin O'Leary, who I love showing you videos of this guy. You know him from Shark Tank, one of our, although Canadian, I would say one of our great American-esque entrepreneurs. He went on Abby Phillip's program over there on CNN. They were not in studio together, and he had a very fancy jacket. And of course, what they were discussing was what we've been talking about really pretty extensively last week, this whole situation with Venezuelan drug dealers, narco-terrorists, taking fentanyl, putting it on a boat with a bunch of guys, speeding that boat to America so that they can kill our kids. Now, nobody cared about that when they were killing our kids. Then Trump started blowing up some of the boats, and the media and the Democrats all started freaking out. My position, which I think Kevin O'Leary lays out quite clearly here, is if you're bringing fentanyl on a boat, you might just get blown up. Suck it.
And historically, as Adam has pointed out, the Coast Guard doesn't do that. They board the ships, they interdict the drugs, they collect the evidence, and in many cases, they try these individuals and bring them to justice. Why can't we do that now?
So what I've learned from all this, and this is not the first time this has happened, don't get on a boat with drugs in it. You get blown up. That's what I've learned from this. And I think at the end of the day, the administration was elected to stop the inflow of drugs that are killing Americans. I think they're doing that. We're having a very healthy debate about it. But basically, no one's debating whether we're drugs on this boat. Venezuela's sending drugs out everywhere. And you're on a boat full of drugs, you get blown up. And I think this may have some drug dealers saying, maybe I want to slow down on the boat drug stuff, which is really what the mandate of the government is. But when the mandate is stop drugs flowing into America to stop killing Americans, and you're a drug dealer in a boat, you might get nuked. I mean, that's what I've learned.
It ain't rocket science. What he did right there is just the Scott Jennings. I'm going to calmly explain to you basic reality, lady. This is why I keep saying this is an 80-20 issue for Trump. People just get it. If you, person watching this right now, rented a speedboat and put a shit ton of meth on it and went to Canada, they might do something about it. It's not just about all the legal mumbo jumbo and double taps and all the stuff that we'll get into in just a bit. It's not about that. It's the signal. That's what I'm always talking about. It's the signal you send to the rest of the world. Think of the signal. Just in the last week, we blew up a couple of these boats, and there's the whole kerfuffle about it and media outrage, and it's just all pandering nonsense. Again, Abby Phillips, I wonder how many shows you've done about the fentanyl fold and all of the kids and young people who are dying. Right? I think it was 50,000 last year. It's insane, right? You don't do shows about that. You're upset that we blow up a boat and then a guy that didn't get fully killed on the boat didn't get a chance to hop back on the wreckage. Like, I just don't think it's a winning issue for you guys, but keep going with that. But think about it. 1 week Trump does this. What's the signal to the world? The signal to the world is you better not do that. So the average guy who's about to hop on the boat with the fentanyl is going to think about it twice. But this line of questioning just continues across the media. Republicans are somehow bad guys for stopping fentanyl coming to our shores. Let's go to NBC. Here's Kristen Welker asking Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton if we should shoot people at the border who bring fentanyl and other drugs across, because of course she's connecting that to what's happening here. Take a look.
The United States doesn't shoot people at the border who are bringing drugs into the country. Why should it be different at sea? Are you saying we should start shooting people at the border?
No, I'm not, Kristen. But we are going to the source where we have large-scale boats that are trafficking hundreds, if not thousands of pounds of drugs that could kill thousands of Americans.
I can't believe I'm going to say this. I think I might be more of a hardcore right-wing maniac than Tom Cotton. Why not shoot them at the border? If someone is coming across your border and they've got a brick, I guess it is, or a bag or whatever it is, of fentanyl, meth, whatever it is, and they're coming across your border, why not just shoot them? I mean, really think about it. Again, there's a signal issue, and I guess we can have all the discussion about the legality and how we want standard operating procedures to go and everything else. But if we are a serious country that is serious about our borders, to the backdrop of letting in about 20 million people in 4 years who we have no idea who they are or what they're doing or what their intentions are or anything else, like, I don't think that's so terrible. You come, like, again, like if I was smuggling drugs into Mexico or Canada, I wouldn't expect them to do much other than whatever the hell they want them to do to me to keep those drugs out. It's not that confusing. So I guess I'm more hardcore than Tom Cotton. Let's jump over to The View, where Whoopi doesn't have to smuggle drugs into the studio. She just smokes her own dreadlocks. Here she is contradicting ABC's own reporting about the guys who got blown off the boat, who were then swimming, who maybe were trying to get back on the boat to get more drugs, or it's a little unclear anyway.
If you have people on a boat, and you blow up the boat, and there's two people hanging on the side of the boat, they're not carrying fentanyl. They're not swimming with the fentanyl on them.
Yeah.
So they weren't posing any danger.
And it's a war crime, according to the
and
military.
we're not at war with anybody.
That's right.
Yeah, but
Again, Whoopi, this is just a losing issue for you. I don't think the average person, I know one person that's died of fentanyl. Very ancillary relationship. It's a friend of mine, someone who I met once or twice. But almost everyone in America has one way or another been touched by this, and you guys don't care about that. And you want to feign outrage that we blew up a boat and one of the guys who didn't get killed didn't get a chance to climb onto the wreckage so that we could give him a fair trial and give him some hot lunches, et cetera, et cetera. It's just ridiculous, but let's continue. This is Democrat Congressman Jim Himes from Connecticut, who I've had on the show. I think he's a decent guy, but he's a Democrat. And because he's a Democrat, they always side with the wrong people. So I say narco-terrorists. He says shipwrecked sailors.
Now, there's a whole set of contextual items that the Admiral explained. Yes, they were carrying drugs. They were not in the position to continue their mission in any way. We don't. People will someday see this video and they will see that video shows, if you don't have the broader context, an attack on shipwrecked sailors.
I think it's important for Americans to see it because, look, there's a certain amount of sympathy out there for going after drug runners. But I think it's really important that people see what it looks like when the full force of the United States military is turned on two guys who are clinging to a piece of wood and about to go under, just so that they have sort of a visceral feel for what it is that we're.
Am I a dick? Like, am I not feeling the season right now? Like, I don't care that the guys who were on the boat bringing fentanyl over were killed. Like, do you think I'm gonna be in a dick? No. You think I'm being a dick? Like, no. I don't care. Why do you guys care? So I accept that the video, which is now classified, the second strike portion of it, that video will come out. And could it look not great that we're going to see two guys hanging onto a piece of wood and it's like, maybe we should have gone down there and picked them up? Who knows? Just in the world we live in, maybe they had a suicide device on that boat that didn't blow up yet. Like, you just don't know. But I just don't think people care. And again, why aren't you, Jim and Whoopi and the rest of you guys, on TV every day talking about the fentanyl crisis, which is actually killing Americans? I thought this was good. We jump over to CNN now, and here is Dana Bash, and she has Democrat Tammy Duckworth on, and she asks her if she's seen the video. First, she says yes, and then she admits she hasn't seen the video.
Senator, have you seen the video?
I have seen the video, and it is deeply disturbing. I am mostly concerned with the fact that we are putting our American servicemen and women in jeopardy here.
I just want to make sure that that I get this accurate. You have seen the classified video of this particular strike, the first strike, and then the double tap, as it's known.
No, I've just seen what's been available in the media.
Okay.
I've read the full report, but I've not seen the actual video.
I mean, Dana Bash, who has like the emotional variance of a piece of wood, like she even knew, like, lady, come on, tell us the truth here. Now, I don't care if she saw it or didn't see it. And again, it will eventually leak out. And is it possible it's going to look a little rough seeing those two extra people get blown away after? Yeah, I guess it is. Again, I just don't care about Venezuelan narco-terrorists. Like, that could be on my tombstone one day. He didn't care about Venezuelan narco-terrorists. But that's one thing. But then what is Duckworth saying? She mostly is concerned that we're putting our servicemen and women in jeopardy. We're not doing that by dropping bombs from a plane. Boom, narco-terrorists go flying, drugs everywhere, guy on a piece of wood. That's how we didn't put any of our people at risk. Putting them at risk would have been actually having to, as Abby Phillip said, I was very impressed that she used this word, interdict the boat, get on there, sort through it. Oh, are you a narco-terrorist? And did you bring fentanyl? That would have put some of them at risk, right? A bomb could have blown up. Somebody could have got shot. We did it in the cleanest way to protect our American servicemen. That's what you said you cared about, Duckworth. And also to protect the citizens of America who are dying from fentanyl. I'll tell you, Tammy Duckworth is no Kevin Duckworth. Get me a video of Kevin Duckworth shooting. He had the craziest, he passed away, unfortunately. He was on the 90 Blazers. He had the craziest jump shot ever. Big 300-pound guy. Anyway, state senator from Missouri, Eric Schmidt, he actually does make sense. And here he is pointing to the hypocrisy and ridiculousness of the Democrat outrage related to all of this.
And so now what we have now are Democrats who have such X-ray vision and clairvoyance that they know the intentions of narco-terrorists on boats, yet we're so blind to see that they had a president for 4 years that was operating as a vegetable in Joe Biden. So, you know, forgive me if I'm a little skeptical that this isn't all about politics and trying to take out Secretary Hegseth. That's what this whole thing's been about, George. They didn't want him confirmed. They didn't want a realist in place. They didn't want to shift from their pet projects around the world and trying to build democracies in the sands of the Middle East by the barrel of a gun. We have core national interests at stake, the homeland in the Western Hemisphere, and the rise of China. That's what this administration is focused on. The Democrats are just upset about that, and they try to create some controversy each and every week, and it goes nowhere.
Yeah, this is why I'm telling you this one is just clean and it's faux outrage and everything else, right? Like what Schmidt just laid out there is right. We have a different president now. We had a vegetable in office for 4 years. We don't know who got in here. We've had enough of it. Again, it's an 80-20 issue. People just simply don't care about narco-terrorists getting blown up. And I genuinely don't mean that to be a dick or to be mean. Like, I really don't. But caring about American people as opposed to the drug dealers trying to kill them, like this is basic low-hanging fruit. Do we have a picture or a video of Kevin Duckworth? Because he was a way better Duckworth. There he is. He was a big man. This guy he probably weighed 350. He was huge. Not very nimble, had a strange jump shot, as you can see. And but the thing is, he had a huge ass. So for the defenders to run around his ass, it would help the other guy. Anyway, all right. Let's talk about Morgan, and then we will move to the January 6th pipe bomber, who is either white or black, depending on what television channel you get your news from. If you've ever been seriously hurt in an accident, your injury could actually be worth millions, and most people have no idea. Insurance companies love to lowball claims, offering way less than what you deserve. That's why there's Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm with over 1,000 attorneys across 50 states. They've been fighting for people for more than 30 years, and they don't settle for lowball offers. Just recently, they won $12 million in Florida, $26 million in Philadelphia, and $6.8 million in New York, all way above what insurance companies offered. And the best part, it's completely free unless you win. No upfront costs, no hidden fees. It takes only a couple minutes to see if you have a case. Did you know you can start a claim with America's largest injury law firm in just one click? It's super easy. Just go to forthepeople.com/Rubin or click the link in the description and pin comment. All right, so let's move on from whether or not we should give narco terrorists happy endings, and let's move over to January 6th. You remember that day? It was crazy couple hours. Well, the pipe bomber has now finally been identified. This feels like a time warp. How did this take so long? But listen to this from Fox News. A suspect who allegedly planted pipe bombs blocks from the U.S. Capitol on January 5th, 2021, is now in federal custody after a nearly 5-year investigation, the Department of Justice announced on Thursday. The FBI arrested the suspect, 30-year-old Brian Cole Jr. of Woodbridge, Thursday morning. DOJ leaders said at a press conference. Cole is facing charges of using an explosive device, but more charges are possible, they said. Attorney General Pam Bondi said the investigation is very active and ongoing. Bondi also criticized the FBI, the Biden FBI, for failing to solve the case, saying the Trump administration made it a high priority and that federal authorities had a breakthrough using existing tips rather than new information. So the last part of that is most interesting, is like, why wasn't this guy found during Biden? And they didn't even get any new tips. It was just that we suddenly had a group of people in the government who perhaps were interested in finding him. Now, there's some confusion as to whether Brian Cole Jr. is black or white. Here is Jake Tapper explaining that he is white, and someone on the internet, because I don't know what kind of editing software you have to use for this, you can now put a picture right on top of video. It's Connor, you know how to do this? It's an incredible thing. And, well, you tell me, for those of you that are not colorblind, if Brian Cole Jr. is black or white.
Capitol attack. Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with malicious destruction by means of explosion. CNN observed local and federal law enforcement outside his home in Woodbridge, Virginia this morning.
I think Jake Tapper's rods and cones are going crazy in his eyes. Maybe he needs to see a doctor. That man is black, Jake. I don't know, like, how, man? How does it happen? Did you not see the picture? Are you just reading off the prompter? Did you have some sort of neurological issue? Like, what happened there? Anyway, it gave me a good excuse to play this great clip from Hear No Evil, See No Evil.
Why do you feel you have to pass for someone with 20/20 vision when you're blind as a bat?
I don't feel I have to pass.
Yes, you do. It's a sickness in your brain, just like if you were trying to pass for white.
You mean I'm not white?
Oh, sit down.
This is a scandal. What do you mean I'm not white? Why didn't you tell me this before? You're my own sister.
Don't worry.
Goodness gracious, do you know a lot of adjustments have to be made? I have to cancel the swimming lessons. What are the guys at the club going to say? I'm not white. Oh, it feels like it. Ah! Goodness gracious, sis, you're right.
Lord, help me.
Does Dad know?
Great movie if you haven't seen it. Him and Gene Wilder together were just magical. But what's the thing with black people can't swim? Why do they say that? Black people can't swim? I'm interested in this. Like, what is that about? I think I've been to pools, public pools, private pools, been to beaches. You see black people in the water, but there seems to be. Here is Jake Tapper, because he got a little, let's just, like, what's the most generous version? He just flubbed, right? Like, I speak off the cuff all the time. You can flub things, like, but somehow he got black and white confused, which just to have that job and to be unable to parse those two seems a bit much to me. But this is not someone who we've come to trust, and that's the problem, because they brought him in. I think he was ABC News chief White House correspondent before he was with CNN. And people, including me, like, he was a moderate. He was someone that we kind of trusted and everything, but he has a history now at CNN of just basically being part of all of the lies. I don't know, like Joe Biden's mental capacity, and then writing a book about it. But of course, it's not just that. You may remember this, Tapper and JD getting into it. Take a look.
You guys talked about the Russia hoax nonstop.
The FBI was investigating it. The FBI was investigating it, so we recovered them.
And so you took the words of unnamed FBI agents and put them on your network as if they were the gospel truth. You did it again and again. A viewer of your network would have believed that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin conspired in 2016.
No.
That was totally and preposterously false.
No.
Well, that's
what you just said is false.
President Trump has gone to, quote, extraordinary lengths to keep specifics about his meetings with Russian President Vladimir Putin secret, even keeping them from top members of his own administration. Take a listen to how President Trump responded Saturday night when asked directly if he has ever worked for Russia.
All right, so the reason I'm showing you that is not to relitigate that, and in some sense it's not even to go after Tapper specifically, and maybe I just can't imagine someone should ask him, like, Jake, how'd you get black and white confused? Do you really think that's a white guy? But putting that aside for a second, the reason I'm showing you that is because you know my line about this is how the media launders the lies. The Democrats lie about things, then the media launders it, or they somehow make you think that if the Republicans ever push back on anything, what are they doing? They're always pouncing. Republicans are always pouncing every time Democrats do something stupid. So now, speaking of stupid, let's jump back over to The View. Here's the most racist woman on television who's married a man worth $450 million, trying to get my buddy Stephen A. Smith to change his opinion on Senator Mark Kelly. Now, of course, Mark Kelly was one of the senators who put up that absolutely ridiculous video about 2 weeks ago encouraging current serving members of the military to disobey illegal laws, even though they couldn't come up with any illegal laws.
So you recently accused Senator Mark Kelly, a veteran, an astronaut, of crossing the line for participating in a video reminding troops that they can refuse to follow illegal orders. Pete Hegseth said in 2016, I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. Now, given the fact that the secretary himself said that, I'd love to give you the opportunity to perhaps change your position on what you said.
I'm not changing a thing.
Okay.
I didn't stutter when I said it.
You want to stay loud and wrong?
Well, you could call it loud and wrong all you want to. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine.
You want to say loud and wrong? You're just awful, Sonny Hostin, because as I said the day the video came out, if there was something illegal happening, they would have said it in the video. They would have said, as they do their little jump cut videos where you can deny an illegal order and you can deny it too. Like they would have said, and those illegal orders are this, that, and the other thing, and they would have listed them out. It's Section 7 of the Penal Code, but they didn't do it, so it was obvious. And then, of course, as you know, we've played this a couple of times, then Mark Kelly went on all the Sunday shows and admitted that he can't figure out what's illegal.
When you and your colleagues made that video, were there specific, potentially illegal orders that you were thinking about that were the sort of precipitating cause for you guys to get together and do that?
Here's the thing, Rachel. You don't want to wait for your kid to get hit by a car before you tell them to look both ways.
That's literally pre-crime. If you have not seen Minority Report, written by the great Phillip K. Dick, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Tom Cruise, you should go see it. It's putting people in jail for things that they have yet to do. That is completely different than telling your kid to look both ways crossing the street or put a seatbelt on or anything else. Let's talk about Juvent for a minute, and then we will talk about Somalian fraud. Guys, if you're dealing with joint pain, stiffness, or just not bouncing back like you used to, you've got to hear this. There's this fitness tool originally designed for NASA astronauts called the Juvent Micro Impact Platform. Unlike those jarring high-impact machines, the Juvent uses gentle, natural vibrations to activate your body's healing response. It helps ease chronic pain, improve circulation, and boost joint health. You just stand on it for 10 to 20 minutes a day while you watch this show, or you have your morning coffee. That's it. It's completely safe, made right here in the USA, and backed by millions in research and clinical studies. So if you've been dealing with pain or fatigue, check out juvent.com/Rubin. That's JUVENT.com/Rubin, and use code Rubin to save $300 on your next Juvent. There's a 6-week money-back guarantee, so you've got nothing to lose, except maybe your pain. All right, so we covered this a bit last week. There is an unbelievably massive scandal, money laundering fraud scandal coming out of Minnesota, and it is deeply tied to the Somali community there. It is deeply tied to Ilhan Omar. It is tied to the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, and many more. It ain't good. It is rotten. And it seems like it's being exposed rather rapidly, which usually these things the lies get laundered, but something seems to be happening here pretty quickly. Listen to this from the U.S. Treasury Department. Millions of taxpayer dollars stolen in the Minnesota fraud scheme were sent to Somalia through money transfer businesses. Treasury is tracking those money transfers and will use the full range of our legal authorities to hold those involved accountable. Okay, so I don't want to get into the entire story here other than the particularly interesting part of this is we all know when these NGOs come in and there's all these government problems, and as Ilhan Omar said last week, there's COVID money and no one knew what to do and we set things up so fast. There's always an excuse, right? The buck stops us, no one. But usually the money laundering and the guy at the end who ends up with the cash in his pocket, usually that guy's in America, right? It's some American operation that's stealing money from Americans. In this case, they were quite literally sending hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions. I mean, it's crazy what's going on here, to Somalia. This seems pretty bad. And speaking of pretty bad, here is Representative Ilhan Omar, Hamas supporter who married her brother, but who am I to judge, criticizing Donald Trump because he said some mean things.
So there are 80,000 people of Somali descent in your state, but the president has been very focused, not just on them, but on you. In this extraordinary cabinet meeting, he said Somalis, quote, come from hell. They complain and they do nothing but bitch.
It's disgusting. It's completely disgusting. These are Americans that he is calling garbage.
What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America? How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people in Germany.
She is so vile. It's like, it's impossible to analyze it really in some way. First off, look, I'm actually not going to defend the exact words that Trump used there, right? Like that's Trump being Trump. And I think we're well past the point that I have to whittle every word he says and everything else. For then that woman, who again committed federal immigration fraud by marrying her brother, which now is finally bursting into the mainstream, someone who goes out of her way to constantly defend America's enemies and never defend America, a place that she is a first-generation immigrant who has attained unimaginable power for all of the wrong reasons. And then she tells you that Stephen Miller, who is Jewish, is a Nazi, as she loves all the people who are actively trying to kill the Jews across the world and right here. Irony is dead. What can I tell you? Irony is absolutely dead. Anyway, she left, and then it might have been a little awkward in the green room because the next guest on the show was Scott Bessent, and here he is talking about the Minnesota fraud money and the transfer and how the money ended up in the Middle East and Somalia. It's like, did they say hello? Did they high-five in the green room? Anything? Who knows? Go.
A lot of money has been transferred from the individuals who committed this fraud, including those who donated to the governor, donated to Representative Omar, and donated to A.G. Ellison. But they've been transferred to something called MBSs. And those are...
Mortgage-backed security? What do you mean?
Sorry?
Transferred to what?
These are money the Bureau services, and they are wire transfer organizations that are outside the regulated banking system. And that money has gone overseas, and we are tracking that both to the Middle East and to Somalia to see what the uses of that have been.
Okay, but you have no evidence of that money being used to fuel terrorism at this point, which is what some conservative writers are alleging.
That's why it's an investigation. We started it last week. We'll see where it goes.
Did you catch her at the end there? So basically what he said is people that donated, you thought you were donating to Ilhan Omar. Here are the people he name checks. Ilhan Omar, then he's talking about Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison. You thought forget the Somali community there. You thought as just the average Minnesota person, you're donating money to their campaigns, right? That's what you thought. The money was then going to the Middle East and Somalia. She then thinks, oh, but that doesn't mean it funded terrorism. Okay, maybe it didn't. Maybe it was just funding houses being built in Somalia. It's still stealing, lady. Here's a guy who's a little more clear with his thoughts. I'm talking about Tom Homan, and here he is referencing, we actually don't know how many of these bad guys are here because Biden just blew the door open and let everybody in.
I've talked to several state and local officials who've said that the number of Somali immigrants who are living in the U.S. illegally there is very, very small, and that this is about scaring people more than it is about arresting criminals. So what have you actually accomplished with this operation so far in Minnesota?
Well, we're just starting, and I disagree with the fact that people, even we don't know how many illegal Somalis there are because, remember, in the last 4 years in Joe Biden, there's over 2 million gotaways, known gotaways, people caught on video, drone traffic or sensor traffic that crossed the border illegally and weren't apprehended, weren't vetted. And so, what President Trump's doing is fixing the last 4 years of the open border where millions of people are released in this country, many we don't know who they are.
What a great example of the launder the lies things. What Dana just did right there. I talked to some people who told me that the illegals in Minnesota, it's just a very small number, right? Okay, first off, how about you give me the names of those people and what were those numbers and what would be a fair number of illegals that should be there? You don't live there, Dana. I have no doubt you work for CNN. Where is she? She's in DC or Washington. I just have no doubt you live in a great neighborhood where there probably aren't a lot of Somali illegals, right? And you probably are behind a gate and all of those things. So you whether she's even making it up or not, that she talked to some people or not, his answer is that's how they launder the lies. You somehow make it seem like the good guy in this situation, the guy who is trying to protect Americans, is somehow the bad guy. And then, of course, what Homan does is just great. He just says the honest truth. We don't even know, right? That's what he admits. We don't even know because Biden let in all of these people, and how the hell are we supposed to track them? That's why every time I bring up the illegals coming through the borders, it's like there are estimates. I always say it's something like the highest estimate that I've ever heard is 24 million. Most people seem to think it's between 50 and 20 million, but that's in 4 freaking years. We just don't know, but that's not really the question. The question is, Dana Bash, why don't you really care about it? Every now and again, I'd say 1 out of every 100 times, a Democrat has to say something true on TV, and here is Timu Obama, Hakeem Jeffries, admitting that we did shut down the border.
But in terms of the border, securing the border, can you give President Trump any credit for securing the border? Because as you know, that was a big issue under the Biden administration when you had record border crossings, and those border crossings have gone down dramatically. Can you give him credit for that?
The border is secure. That's a good thing. It's happened on his watch. He wants to claim credit for it. Of course, he'll get credit for that.
He wants to claim credit for it. He did it. You guys could have done it. It was your president who did not do it. You kept saying we needed a bipartisan bill. As I said, that was 2 years ago now. I was saying the entire time it was BS. It's one of the few things that the president can do by himself. And he freaking did it. But good for you, Timu Obama. You admitted it. You got dragged to the truth, and it was so freaking obvious you had to admit it. Of course, the other part of this is that we have people here in America that are refusing to assimilate, that want to bring their old ancient hatreds and tribal warfare and all that stuff. They want to import that into America. It's not just about importing the things that are good, which might be their food or their music, or sense of humor or family values or whatever it might be. They're importing a whole bunch of bad stuff. So this video was going crazy viral over the weekend. This is a random Somali guy. I think he's in Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. And well, just watch this. There's every reason to believe he's legal, by the way, because of the brazenness of this. So I don't know that he's not legal, but if he's legal, it's even bigger problem. Go.
My biggest fear in life is that this man may never witness our full takeover. Yes, he may never witness that. He already witnessed our partial takeover, our little success in America. And he is the reason, actually, I know that the community in America is thriving. He is how I know. It's like, he's how we measure our progress. If he doesn't tweet, somebody messed up. I know it. Somebody up the plan. If he tweet, I know.
Okay, again, I'm going to go on the assumption that that kid is legal. Now, I don't even need to make it about him, but the general notion, what's he talking about? We have our partial takeover. We have our little successes. What do you think he's talking about? He's talking about Minnesota. He's talking about Ilhan Omar. He's talking about Mayor Jacob Frey. We'll get to him in just a second. He's talking about these places where Somali gangs are taking over the streets. He's talking about places where women are put in beekeeper costumes and they are not integrating with other people. And why do you think that's so great? And of course, who do you hate most? Well, you hate Donald Trump, the one person trying to do something about it. Dana Bash, might I offer a little bit of advice for your program? How about you put that guy on and ask him some tough questions about what it means to be an American? That might be interesting, as opposed to asking Tom Homan why he's doing anything about the illegals that are there. That's just a little piece of friendly advice on this Monday. Let's jump over to Minnesota Mayor Jacob Frey, telling us how great the Somalis have been to Minnesota.
He's wrong, and we want them here. Somali people have been an extraordinary benefit. I'll say it again. Somali people have been a benefit to our city for longer than I have been in.
Okay, look, I don't, in a weird way, the conversation is happening because we're talking about the Somalis, but that's a sidebar, right? That now, the Somali thing has become a placeholder for people who are not integrating properly and everything else. Are there Somalis who do? Of course. Are there Somalis who are thriving in America and love the country and everything else? Yes. But we are also finding out that a huge amount of them are living on the dole, are intentionally and sometimes unintentionally sending more money back to Somalia. We know that there were Somali warlords basically fighting over this last election that got Jacob Frey to be re-elected instead of the Somali guy, because he was more in line with what the Somali warlords wanted. Like, this is crazy shit to be happening in America. But the food is pretty good, and you can see that Jacob Frey just loves it. There was this video of him trying to choke down Somali food, and oh my God, it's just great. You can almost see the beads of sweat. What was that movie with Ben Stiller where he has dinner with Jennifer Aniston, and he has IBS? And what the hell was it called? And they went to Indian food, and she wants to eat all the spicy food. It was called something. What was it? Along Came Polly. That is literally that scene. Has horrific diarrhea, which is always a go-to in a comedy movie. Speaking of comedy movies, New York City, which is now becoming a comedy, a farce, and a nightmare all at once. Moron Zamboni, who will be taking over in about 3 weeks now. Here he is, once again saying that he will protect illegals from ICE. That means he is telling us before he has sworn in, which my guess is he's not going to swear in on the Constitution, he's going to swear in on a Quran. But even before he's done that, he is telling us he is willing to break federal immigration law by not cooperating with the federal government on the illegal situation, that he will remain a sanctuary city. This is a non-starter. He should, in a sane world, someone that says, I'm going to break the law, should not be allowed to take office in the first place. However, that's coming. New York City, good luck with that. Here he is.
Last weekend, ICE attempted to raid Canal Street and detain our immigrant neighbors. As mayor, I'll protect the rights of every single New Yorker, and that includes the more than 3 million immigrants who call this city their home. But we can all stand up to ICE if you know your rights.
They're not your rights if you're illegal. If you're illegal, you have no rights in the United States of America. And if you're telling me that there are 3 million illegals in New York, well, then that is a problem. But he's confused. He's purposely confusing the issue. Why do they never say illegal? They never make the distinction because they want you to be confused. But whether there's 3 million illegals, which that would be an awful lot, but whether there's 3 million illegals or whether there's just, 50,000 illegals, ICE is doing the job that the president voted him in to do, which is completely legal and everything else. He is the one that preemptively is breaking the law. We've shown you the code in the Constitution as it relates to this already, that you can't impede the federal government as they're doing legal things, blah, 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 blah. I don't feel like doing the whole legal version of it right now. But it's like, how does a functioning society say, certain cities will just allow people to break the laws whenever they want and get city services and everything else? Like, how does that scale over time? Probably not that well. And then you might end up like Europe. And Europe's got huge problems. There was a ton of stuff that came out of Europe over the weekend related to the American relationship and Europe. Listen to this from Fox. The Trump administration's new national security strategy marks a sweeping shift in America's defense priorities, downplaying Islamic terrorism and decades of Middle East-centric policymaking in favor of asserting U.S. dominance in the Western Hemisphere and treating mass migration as the top national security threat. In language that departs from every post-9/11 strategy document, the White House argues that the Middle East is no longer the primary driver of global instability and says the era of mass migration must end, elevating border security and counter-cartel operations to core national defense missions. The strategy includes a Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine to block foreign powers from gaining influence in the Americas and calls for shifting military resources away from long-standing theaters abroad. The original Monroe Doctrine warned European powers against interfering in the Western Hemisphere. Its revival and expansion signals one of the clearest hemispheric doctrines in modern U.S. foreign policy. Okay, so we're gonna have more on this in just a second, but this is absolutely massive. You know, regardless of what side of some of the fighting on the right you're on the hardcore America only side of everything. You're on the MAGA side, which seems to use peace through strength. Wherever you're on that, this is a clear shift from forever wars, from endlessly focusing on the Middle East. I think this is also partly at least a function of things that have happened in the last few years, where Trump, through exerting power, has largely wrapped up the wars there. The Arab countries have pretty much given up wiping Israel from the map, and if they would stop doing that, Israel's not going after any of them. And then I think what that also is connected to is what, well, we've talked about on the show for years, and many online people have, and occasionally it trickles into mainstream, which is that Europe, particularly Western Europe, has a massive immigration problem. They have let in literally millions of people willfully, who have not integrated properly, who don't care about the new countries they're in, who are importing the very ideas which they fled. And this is a problem, and America is now going to change that. And if we want a strengthened Europe, or at least a strengthened relationship with Europe, well, then we need them to deal with that migrant crisis. Otherwise, the say France or Belgium or UK that we're negotiating with now will look very, very different in 20 years. And how do you sign deals with those people? So we have a bit more from Fox on this shift. The White House warns in a stark new national security strategy that Europe could be unrecognizable in 20 years or less due to mass migration, adding that the demographic shift raises doubts about future US allies on the continent. Should present trends continue, the continent will be unrecognizable in 20 years or less, the 33-page document released on Thursday reads. It adds that the real and more stark prospect is of civilizational erasure. Mass immigration has been one of Europe's most volatile political flashpoints over the past decade, fueled by repeated waves of immigrants from the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia. As such, it is far from obvious whether certain European countries will have economies and militaries strong enough to remain reliable allies, the document says. Many of these nations are currently doubling down on their present path. We want Europe to remain European, to regain its civilizational self-confidence, and to abandon its failed focus on regulatory suffocation. The National Security Plan cites migration policies that are transforming the continent and creating strife, along with cratering birth rates and the erosion of national identity. The White House warns the demographic shift could have major implications for NATO and European security, noting that several member states may become majority non-European. That scenario, the document argues, could weaken Europe's ability to deter adversaries and complicate U.S. efforts to maintain transatlantic stability. This might be the single best example of we are a serious nation again. Not only are we taking care of our border, but we are saying to all of Europe, if you want us to engage with you economically, culturally, scientifically, whatever it might be, we can only do this if you guys are going to be serious countries too. We can't sign deals with people. And we can't have military operations with people if we don't know that in 10 years they're going to be the same fundamental country or not, right? Like that is the fundamental issue that we are dealing with right here. These countries, Western Europe has fallen on the sword. They opened up their borders. They let all these people in. I said it I said it a couple weeks ago when we were in Australia. I said it on a panel. Like, to me, Buckingham Palace will be occupied by Islamists in 20 years. That's pretty freaking bleak, but unless they are going to do something about it, I don't see a way around it. And then what happens when these new regimes and these new people who are not European, when they have nukes and a whole bunch of other things? Look at this. This is quite, as long as we're talking about the UK, look at this pie chart showing the replacement levels of migration in London over the years. In 1961, you're seeing a change as the years go by there. In 1961, London was 97.7% white. In 2021, it's 36.8% white. Now, as I always say, this isn't about skin color per se. It's not about an immutable characteristic. But if people of varying skin colors are coming in and then importing ideas and cultures and traditions that are not, let's put it this way, that are hostile to the nativist population, then it is a problem. And for any of you that have been to London over the last couple of years, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Elon saw that, what I just showed you right there, that chart. He retweeted it and said, this is simply indisputable what has happened. We have a bit more on what's going on now with the European Union and some editorial from Wall Street apes. They're quite good on X. The European Union needs to be abolished. The European Parliament passed a new EU's Asylum and Migration Pact, forcing all European Union countries to accept mandatory illegal migration or face heavy fines. Protesters disrupted the vote, chanting, "No, solidarity for illegal migration is mandatory, and European Union countries must now choose how to support illegals." You can either relocate asylum seekers, minimum 30,000 annually across the EU, provide financial contributions, that's 20,000 per refused relocation, offer operational support or other measures. The EU's Asylum and Migration Pact was passed and remains in force as of December of 2025. Full applications begin in June of 2026. So despite everything, guys, despite everything that we have seen, not only at our borders, which now are clean, but across European borders, which once the EU came to be, their borders, although they technically existed, in essence, in reality, they didn't exist. And we still see migrant boats showing up off the coasts of Spain and Italy and all of these countries. And then once they get there, then they can basically hop on a train and get across the entire continent. And this is not good. Now, I want to flash back to a video. I spoke at CPAC Hungary, what was this, about 6 or 8 months ago. And I sat down with Balázs Orbán. He's Viktor Orbán, no relation, Orbán, no relation. He's Viktor Orbán's chief political operative. And one of the things that amazed me, and one of the reasons I love Hungary, I love just a small country that's just trying to defend its border and its culture and take itself seriously. And, you know, they've been attacked by communism and Nazism. They've lived through an awful lot over there in Hungary. It's a wonderful country. And at CPAC, I spoke with Balázs Orbán about the crazy situation that they now find themselves in. To be part of the EU, which they want to be part of the EU because they want all the trade benefits and everything else, the EU fines them 1 million euros a day because they will not open up their borders to endless immigration.
Your country is fined, what did you say, 1 million euros a day because of the closed border situation? I mean, that is, as crazy as things are, the idea that just because you've decided to run your nation as you see fit, that you have to pay, in essence, pay a tax?
It's crazy, isn't it? And my problem is that when I'm mentioning it to my American friends, I once mentioned it to Vice President J.D. Vance as well, and he told me that, 1 million per day. Oh, it's a pretty good business. If you let those people in, it would cost you more.
So really think about that. A sovereign nation is paying a tax, paying a penalty because they're saying we'd like to remain a sovereign nation. And then the EU says, okay, the only way we're going to it's an extortion racket, right? The only way we're going to let you do that is if you pay us 365 million euros a day. Otherwise, basically, we're going to flood your country with people that you don't want there. It's absolutely extraordinary. And of course, it's not just the migration problem that the European Union is dealing with. Here is an EU rep saying it's a crime to insult someone in person and online, which is going to basically put us all in jail.
Is it a crime to insult somebody in public?
Yes. Yes, it is.
And it's a crime to insult them online as well?
Yes. The fine could be even higher if you insult someone in the internet.
Why?
Because in internet, it stays there. If we are talking here face to face, you insult me, I insult you, okay, finish. But if you in the internet, if I insult you or a politician,
that sticks around forever.
Yeah.
If somebody posts something that's not true, and then somebody else reposts it or likes it, are they committing a crime?
Yeah, in the case of reposting, it is a crime as well.
Fuck those guys. Sent from America, right? You can see how evil this will become, right? You give away your ability to speak freely, to insult people and be insulted back and everything else. Does it hurt? Somebody says something mean about you on the computer machine. Sometimes it can hurt. It can hurt. Dave, your hair doesn't look great today. I hear that every now and again, although pretty solid today. But like, they can say mean things, and it just is what it is. But as these countries, because ultimately, of course, guys, joking aside, what you know will happen is that it won't be about insulting people or the worst of the worst things that people are saying. It'll be about saying basic truths. So for example, which they have this right now in England, if you say things that are anti-immigration, you can potentially be arrested. There was a huge story a couple weeks ago about somebody that said the word faggot. Did I just get us demonetized? It's a bundle of sticks, isn't it? And then got arrested. That's crazy. Like, that's absolutely crazy. Eva Vladerbrook, who I've interviewed many times and I spent some time with actually in Budapest, in Hungary, with Prime Minister Viktor Orban. She's become one of the leading, I would say, outspoken advocates of European countries being for themselves and not for the EU. She's originally from Holland. Here she is talking about how the EU really needs to end, basically.
The totalitarian institute of the European Union needs to come down. Let me be clear, I don't believe in reforms. When the foundation of your institution is rotten, and that is the case in Brussels, you can rebuild the house on top of it all you want, but it's still going to crumble. So the only answer is the Tower of Babel needs to be destroyed.
Now you might say, came back a little early, I was really focused on that. You might say, like, that sounds radical. That sounds right. What do you mean the EU has to come down? But remember, Europe existed for thousands of years, and borders changed and sovereign nations changed and all of those things, and people fought for their countries and their cultures for years. And then the European Union is largely a modern concoction over the last couple decades. And she's probably right. It's not that it can be reformed at this point. What right does a bureaucrat in Brussels have over your life if you're a simple citizen of Hungary who lives somewhere in the countryside? They should have no right over your life. Your government should, just like ours here in America, et cetera, et cetera. Now, interestingly, this idea of countries with sovereign borders and the failure of the EU, this thing's starting to scale. Here's CEO of JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, talking about how the EU's bureaucracy is not only an immigration problem, but it's actually stifling progress and innovation and the ability for business to actually go forward and I don't know, make good things.
Do you think Europe, from your perspective, wants to work with America right now?
I think Europe has a real problem. It's very hard to look at the world and we have moving tectonic plates. You've heard it spoken about. It's AI. The enemy's in the satellite up above and in your computer systems right now. And the world changed. The other tectonic plate is the rise of China, huge global deficits, social network programs that probably can't be maintained over a long period of time. So Europe has a problem, but it got bogged down. They never finished the common market. It takes 27 nations, to make a decision. They let their military drop dramatically. It's very bureaucratic, which is why part of the reason that they lost Britain to the EU, which I think makes it bad for both of them, by the way.
Right, so that's the basics. When you talk about the bureaucrats in Belgium, you need 27 countries to agree on this so that they can do anything, and they largely have just abandoned their sovereignty, and then they've abandoned their own people. Those things are often connected. Let's jump over. We showed you a video of NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang last week. I'm going to show you another one right now, because here he is talking about that if you don't have industrial growth, if you don't actually do things and innovate and figure out how to get proper energy and all of those things, it ain't going to be good.
if the United States doesn't grow, we will have no prosperity. We can't invest in anything domestically or otherwise. We can't fix any of our problems. If we don't have energy growth, we can't have industrial growth. If we don't have industrial growth, we can't have job growth. It's as simple as that.
Right.
And the fact that he came into office and the first thing that he said was drill, baby, drill. His point is we need energy growth. Without energy growth, we can have no industrial growth. And it saved the AI industry. And so I think he's got it right. We need energy growth. We want to reindustrialize the United States. We need to be back in manufacturing.
So the point of connecting those two clips is while the EU is bogged down and, we can't make decisions, we got 27 countries that got to sign on this and we're obsessed with these climate accords and all of these other problems, and we're going to demand that NATO do things even though we don't pay our fair share. What's the United States doing? Well, on day one, Trump said, drill, baby, drill. And then we start fixing up our energy sector, and then we can fix up the industrial sector, et cetera, et cetera. So we got leadership because we are not beholden in America to anyone other than America. And that is a beautiful thing. And now we are sending a signal to Europe. You better fix yourself or we're not going to have much to do with you either. If you guys lose your countries, if you all become Islamist regimes, if they're waving the Hezbollah flag over Buckingham Palace, then we're probably not going to be doing a lot of business. Like, we like fish and chips and we can make them too. Let's jump back to my buddy Stephen A. Smith, because if America chooses the other path, if America chooses the path where it's not that 27 nations will make our decisions, but if we just import leaders who are bureaucrats, people with no vision, who don't understand how economies work, who don't understand the nature of building and innovation, we will all end up like California. And that is what we don't want to do. I can tell you that as someone that fled from California. Actually, I landed in America. That's hilarious. I landed in Florida. On December 17th, 2021. So basically next week is our 4-year anniversary of being here in the free state of Florida. But here is Stephen A. explaining that Gavin Newsom will likely not be president because people understand what has happened in California.
You got to pay attention to Gavin Newsom. He's gaining some traction. I don't think he'll win, but he's gaining traction.
Why not?
Because I think that ultimately they'll look at the state of California, look at affordability, look at homelessness, look at crime, and they'll say, hello, highest cost of living in the country. They'll be like, what? Wait a minute now. So I think that'll be a problem for him, but he's articulate enough to defend himself, and we'll see what happens with that. But
yeah, so look, he grinds up the aborted fetuses and he uses them as hair gel, and he's got the good veneers and his suits fit and all those things. That's the show part of all of this. But at the end of the day, what has the guy done? He has done things that have destroyed San Francisco, where he's mayor, and ultimately destroyed the state of California, where he is now governor. We'll show you some info here from Polymarket. Democratic presidential nominee in 28. I mean, right now, Newsom is leading 30. I know it's early. I'm just throwing these things out here. This is what the betting markets are saying. Gavin Newsom at 36%. And the only other person who's even tracking above 10%, occasional cortex at 11%. Let's jump to a guy who I will have in studio here on Friday, my good buddy Adam Carolla, who has been, if I'm probably the number one critic of Gavin Newsom, but you know what? I'll even hand it to Carolla, because he still lives under his thumb. He still, for some freaking reason, lives in California. His house was not destroyed in the Malibu fires, but he has been one of the most outspoken advocates of what happened there and how the rebuilding has gone horribly and everything else. Here he is talking about how partly one of the things that is wrong with the country right now, one of the reasons that we seem to be depressed and filled with anxiety and all of that, is we are not building. There's no physicality to what we are doing anymore as we just stare at our phones endlessly.
I think the uptick in despair is connected to a couple of things. I feel it's more physical than it is spiritual, although it ends up being spiritual, which is we were meant to go out and work and be on our feet and sweat and be with nature and work on a farm and mend fences. And men and women had different roles, but there were roles, and they involved getting up in the morning, and they involved movement and sweat, and it involved an engagement. You had to sort of be careful or you'd lose your arm from an axe. You know what I mean?
You know, one of the reasons Adam's great is because he explains sort of complex things in very, very simple ways. But he's right. What he said there is it's physical, but it ends up being spiritual, meaning back in the day, you want to go back 50 years, 100 years, 400 years, whatever it is, we were hunter and gatherers. You had to protect your own family. You had to actually do things. You had to go out there and learn to do something that was likely physical, right? You had to learn, you had to literally, all the videos, you can watch those incredible black and white videos that we show you sometimes of, these guys who were just average men that were building skyscrapers, and people had to learn how to do electrical work, and they learned how to change a tire. These are things that in our modernity, most people cannot do. Our skill set has been severely diminished because we've outsourced it all to this. Like, even think what having maps on your phone or in your car has done. In the old days, you had to kind of know how to get somewhere. And if you didn't know how to get there, I remember driving with my parents on vacations to all sorts of places, Lake George and going to Jersey Shore and all this. And if we'd get lost, my mom would have to bust out the map, and she usually had it upside down, and that never made my dad happy, but eventually we would get there. But we've outsourced all these things. We don't know how to do many things anymore. We're not out there physically making these things happen. So it's interesting. He describes it first as a physical problem that then becomes a religious problem, like a philosophical problem, right? Because if you're just twiddling on your thumbs all day, doing a lot of nothing, or everything's been solved for you, you might actually end up with more of an existential problem. Here's one more from Carolla on that.
And we took, in the last 10 minutes, everyone, and we put them in a cubicle, and we fired air conditioning at them, and we told them to do data entry on a computer, and we started eating our own brains. I mean, they have studies that say, all the kids on Prozac and all the meds and stuff, hiking and classical music work better than all the serotonin reuptake inhibitors you can ingest. So we're having... You watch, Little House on the Prairie, no one was depressed. Everyone was miserable, but no one was depressed. And it's a disease of narcissism.
That's really funny. I'm going to talk to him about that on Friday. Everyone was miserable, but nobody was depressed. Do you remember Little House on the Prairie? Like, you guys don't remember that, right? Your time. Can I get a throw me a picture of Little House on the Prairie? Or maybe, you know what, can we end today? We're going to end today's show. We're going to cold close with the intro to Little House on the Prairie. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to see if we can grab that. But the idea there was they were building a society. They had one room school for everybody, and there was one guy who ran the drugstore, and there was the matchmaker, and they were out there, and they had to build the fence and build the house, and everyone was miserable because it kind of sucked. You had to shit in a bucket, but they weren't depressed. And we've given ourselves, modernity has given us all this stuff that was supposed to free us and oddly enslaved us. And this is the great challenge. So how do you overcome that challenge? How do you overcome a physical challenge that then, as Adam points to, becomes sort of a philosophical or an existential or religious problem? You go out there and you do things, right? Work with people who you love, build things that inspire you during the day, whatever that is. One of the things that I've learned over the years as an interviewer, and even before I was doing Rubin Report, I had a show on Sirius XM, now I'm talking like 15 years ago. And we would interview all sorts of people. When I was interviewing people, I always found if someone was interested in what they were doing, then I basically liked them. I didn't have to like what they were doing, but if they loved it, I thought they were kind of interesting, and that would show, because it is like the light that is within you that you are unleashing. So build some stuff and move to places where freedom can flourish, like Florida, where we've got a governor who's interested in building things and keeping people free.
Couple things. One, in an off-year midterm, the party in power's voters tend to be more complacent. Party out of power, they get upset, right? That's just the nature of midterms. Right. We saw it when Obama was in and Republicans. So that dynamic is always going to be there. Then I think Republicans have an issue that Donald Trump has created a big pool of voters, but some of them are unique to him, right? So they will go vote for Trump, and they'll vote for all the Republicans when Trump's on the ballot. But if he's not on the ballot, some of them don't vote. Now, you can overcome that. We did it in Florida in 2022. We had a state that was a purple state, 1-point state. We won by 1.5 million votes, 20 points, the biggest Republican victory ever. But we did that based on results and substance. We did it by flying under a banner of bold colors, not pale pastels. we were sticking it to the left every single day and delivering big victories. So it can be done, but I think it's like you can't go on 2024 and say, oh, well, we Republicans won this district by 10 points, so therefore we're going to win it because President Trump is the reason you won it by 10.
So that was kind of the political version of what I just said, right? Like, that's the political version. We better start building right now. We better show people there's a better alternative than the New York City socialism or the Minnesota money laundering or the just that, oh, the left sucks, the left sucks. Like, that's not enough. There has to be a positive vision, and a positive vision will come with hard work, with building things, with an AI revolution, with robotics. Like, we can be that wide tent that he's talking about. Because freedom in America is wide tent. That's how you welcome the most people in. We are going to end, I am told, with the Little House on the Prairie intro. How many seasons of Little House on the Prairie? I'm going to guess, wild guess. This is a little before my time, but I'm going to say it's 7 seasons. How many seasons of 9 seasons of Little House on the Prairie? I don't know which intro this is. We're going to end with that. And on the other side, for those of you that are members of Locals, RubinReport.locals.com. Post-game show in just a sec. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.